kids. Welcome to Comics Tuesday. Let's start talking about comic books. So, how about Deadpool? That's the one where a guy gets real sick, gets healing powers, and starts hurting people for money. You know what, let's just move on. Yeah, let's talk about Spawn. Spawn is the story of a guy who goes to heck and gets burned and gets powers, and then there's an awful lot of vengeance. Okay, let's skip that. We could talk about Constantine the Heck Blazer. Hey, you know what? There's a lot of comic books that aren't suitable for children. And that's perfectly fine. But how about this? How about today? We'll talk about comics that are good for all ages. I don't want to get too negative here, so I'm going to start off with the ones that I don't feel really work as well as they should. And then we'll move on to the stuff that I really like. So we're going to start with Ultimate Spider-Man. And I hate to say that because I'm not talking about the good one that features interesting characters and introduced Miles Morales, but I'm talking instead about the one that is a rehash of the show Ultimate Spider-Man, which I just don't care for. I don't like the show. I don't like it even more as a comic book because it's just filled with screen caps from the show. It's got shallow characters, flat humor. In my opinion, this is not the way you do a comic book for children. Next, we're going to talk about Teen Titans Go, based on the show Teen Titans Go. And I don't think this comic totally works either. However, unlike Ultimate Spider-Man, I really like the show. I think it's really funny, it's appropriately lighthearted. My only problem with the comic is these are comic book characters being readapted into comic book form. And there's room for them to have so much more depth or intricate storytelling than what they do compared to the show. So I'd just like to see more from it. But while we're on the topic of TV shows adapted as all ages comics, let's move on to the ones that I like. You have Adventure Time, My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Invader Zim. All of these work really well. They're some of my favorite comics in general, and it's for one simple reason. All of these are written just like an episode of the show would be. So naturally you have good show, good comic, and there's not really too big of a gap between them. You know, it's a real apples-to-apples situation. And before we change topics, just one more. The most unlikely in the category of TV show adapted to comic that's great. Well, check this out. It's from a live-action show featuring Batman. That's right, it's Batman 66. And it has all the campy, goofy fun of Adam West Batman. It's so pleasant, it's so safe, it captures all the magic of the show that is now 50 years old. And now it's the perfect comic for children current day. I think that's amazing. But there's also original comics aimed at children that are amazing books. And I think there's no better example of this than Lumberjanes. And it's about a group of little girls that are at a camp, they're all friends with each other, and it's just about them going on adventures. And so whether they're learning to build a campfire or fighting a sea dragon, the heart of this story is in the characters. Every one of these girls is lovably rambunctious, and they're all different, unique, pulls off the very impressive feat of making a reader of any age feel like a child. Now moving on, we got some characters repurposed, we put into all ages books. I'm going to start with the biggest success recently. That is the unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl has existed for well over a decade. She's always been like a joke character, but usually in the background. She started off in an Iron Man comic. She's been associated with some teams. There's been a lot of funny stuff, memorable moments along the way. But what's really impressive is her all of a sudden taking the lead on her own book and it being as good as it is. And it's just packed to the gills with cuteness. Squirrel Girl is infinitely awkward. She's horrible at keeping her secret identity. Just no good at all. And she's so nice. She would always rather talk it out than fight with the villain. But when it does come to that, just as the title suggests, she doesn't lose, ever. And that's even if she goes up against the Avengers or Doctor Doom or Galactus, which is complete nonsense because her only power is talking to squirrels. Next up is Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat. And Patsy Walker as a character has been around for a long time, actually predating Marvel. And it wasn't until some time later, in Avengers, they decided to bring her back and give her superhero identity. Patsy Walker is usually used as like a supporting character, and she's typically a very light-hearted, fun-loving character, which makes her on an all-ages title a really good idea. And her book isn't afraid to get into some somewhat serious issues. She could have a crisis of confidence, or feel some guilt, or, just have a rough time. But what's really endearing is how she just keeps going on and is a superhero because she loves doing it, wants to help people, and gets excited about going on adventures with friends. And finally, we're going to talk about the comic that made my year of 2015. I love this one. And that is the Archie Comics reboot. And while Archie isn't explicitly for like small children, it does have a reputation and a long history of being very neat and wholesome. And so when it's rebooted in a modern day setting, that's kind of a scary thought, except it works very well. The new books, both Archie and Jughead, are not only impressively good, but they're faithful to the originals. It hasn't become laced with filth or anything. It's still super decent, very funny, and honestly, all around, it's better than ever. So to wrap up, here's my thoughts on all ages comics, or comic books for children, whatever. I think there's a place for every type of comic. Everything that could be a reader's first book, or the stuff that's really complex and thought-provoking, or super violent, whatever. They all have their right to exist. But as far as young readers, I think the biggest mistake you can make is targeting them only and making it too simple. Because if you'll just give that child reader credit, you can make something that in general is a good story and have it be really all ages and for any and everyone. And personally, those are some of my favorite comics that exist. What do you think about it? Leave your comments down here, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and come back next time for Comics Tuesday. Next time on Comics Tuesday, I'll explain Superman's powers and origin. Thanks for watching, motherfucker.